Ole, we've begun doing these preview shows every Monday to let people know that you and I, for a long time, have been doing our Monday show, Light on Conspiracies with Ole Dammegard. We're joined today by two very important guests. We've got Michael Zazio and Cody Snodgrass. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Doing good.
Well, I'm doing pretty fine as well.
Wonderful to see everybody. Now, Michael, you came on the show just a couple of weeks ago. You were telling us about some of the research you've been doing into the coronavirus. Obviously, this is still headline news basically in every country. It's a pandemic. I've been starting to notice around in the mainstream media in the United States that there seems to be, almost seems like it started this morning or yesterday, an acknowledgement that this is not just some bat soup anomaly, but perhaps a bioweapon or something that's been created in a lab. What can we say about that?
I think it's pretty obvious right now, and it has been for, I would say, a little more than a week and a half, that it is a bioweapon, most probably. You can never be 100% sure because it's always based on statistics, but in this case, there has been some anomalies reported, and there has also been genome sequencing that has really not proven, but statistically pointing in the direction that this is man-made. It's made in a lab. It's probably made in the Wuhan Class 4 lab, and it is made so that it will be suitable for some kind of purpose.
So for the layperson who's listening, how can that sort of determination be made? Is there anything that you can share with us that'll help people understand how you conclude that it's...
The first determination was based on the fact that 4 of the gene sequences were identical to an HIV gene sequence, 4 gene sequences in an HIV virus. Mm-hmm. So it seems like those 4 genes have been taken from a previous virus and put into a new coronavirus. So this is what it looks like right now.
And is that because statistically speaking, the likelihood that 2 things could just accidentally share those similarities in genetics is like not possible, or how?
Well, everything is possible, but the statistical probability is so small,
right,
that it could be more or less neglected. It's not a probable option that this has occurred in nature.
Wow. So Ole, Cody, have you guys seen any research along these lines? Can you add anything here? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. It's like the way that I first really started suspicion that there was something weird going on was that on the 18th of October last year, there was what was called a simulation with so-called players, where they were simulating. These were some major players, I would say, in my opinion, connected to the New World Order agenda, including Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is a very pretty front when it comes to charity, but when you look at the underlying agenda, it's a very brutal depopulation agenda through vaccines, very dangerous vaccines here. So this simulation, in it, they were going through the exact pandemic we're seeing now, but they were saying they were practicing it in South America, where everything was done step by step by step, and where all the different players, including the CDC, including that's the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, and the CDC for Asia as well, were involved as players. And what are the probabilities to, with the virus, the exact same virus, at least the exact same name, that they were doing this simulation with up to 65 million deaths in their simulation. And then just like 6 weeks later, boom, we have the identical thing being played out, but now in China. And so where is it played out? It's in Wuhan, which is a city that is, I've heard today from people that used to live in the area, Wuhan is a city that is famous for its rebellion against authorities, against the government. And so where would be a really good place to place a thing like that if it was a directed bioweapon against, I would say, in a city where you have problems with dissidents, where you could use that as an excuse also to get rid of people that were of other political opinions than the government, and so on. And then there was also a major military exercise, or they call it, no, I want to go back to 5G as well, which is, it seems like 5G is very much working hand in hand with this pandemic. And Wuhan, the exact same city, was the city, I believe, where the most 5G base stations were operating in China at the end of 2019. We're talking about 10,000 5G base stations, and exactly in Wuhan, they started in February 2019 with this rolling out of 5G. And the combination of these two are very, very, very sinister, I would say, just as a little start. But I would like, let's hear from Cody here instead of me rambling on.
Cody, what do you think about 5G and Wuhan?
Well, that's a big subject when you start mixing electromagnetic and RF frequency ranges, especially in the microwave section of the spectrum, along with the genetics of this possible outbreak. But I agree that this looks more and more like it's going to be leaked from that bioweapon level 4 lab in Wuhan. The protein spikes that have been found, there was one paper, we talked about it before, it was on the website biorxiv.org, and it was called Full Genome Evolutionary Analysis of the Novel Coronavirus 2019 nCoV Rejects the Hypothesis of Emergence as a Result of a Recent Recombination Event. Recombination event is something that has, viruses have combined naturally. And what they found were 4 insertions in the spike of the glycoprotein number 5, which were unique to this coronavirus. It's not present in other coronaviruses. And like you said before, the amino acid sequences, they're very similar to the HIV virus on 4 of these spikes. And the spikes are the ones on the outside of the shell, that hook into the epithelial tissues of your lungs. So it does look like this, it could have come from that bat virus from Yunnan, China. That was it's called BAT-CoV RATG13, and that's been listed in the genomic sequencing databases before. But this one here looks like it could be a potential bioweapon that leaked out. So when you mix bioweapons that are designed, genetically engineered, and don't normally occur in natural recombination events, then there's no immunity. And then there's also been speculation that you can set those off with some type of a pre-selected specific frequency burst from an EM transmitter or a microwave transmitter. But I don't have any data on that. That stuff's highly classified. In other words, you take some virus, you create it, and then you spread it. It sits dormant in people's tissues, and then with a proper electromagnetic signature, the virus activates. But like I said, I don't have any real data on it. The real data on this coronavirus was done on this paper here that I just referenced.
Right, from the that website. I think I replaced that suit. Right,
biorxiv.org.
Right. Yeah. And so what I wanted to remind everybody of is that we're going to be going in depth with this subject when we begin our sponsor exclusive show in just 20 minutes on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, as well as patreon.com/lightonconspiracies and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So I wanted to ask all of you guys this because So we're talking about a potential bioweapon. Michael, you've told us that the statistical likelihood that this genetically identical sequence that appears to come from HIV, that it could accidentally appear there, seems like such a low possibility, a low likelihood. And Cody is telling us that the natural, this website has tracked the possibility of it being a natural migration. I was just noticing this morning, or perhaps last night, the Washington Post has this article. It's saying that Tom Cotton is repeating a coronavirus conspiracy theory that was already debunked. They're talking about the theory suggesting that this was, connected to this lab in Wuhan, China. Now, what makes us think it's coming from Wuhan, China? We've seen this patent that David Hawkins had pointed out. It indicates that the coronavirus, it's patented by the Pirbright Institute. This might be an older one. There was one from 2019, the Pirbright Institute. I don't think I'm looking at the right one, but the Pirbright Institute is a British thing. Why do we think this is coming from Wuhan, China, and not potentially coming from somewhere else and sent to China?
Well, the case is that the infection is spread throughout the whole of China, but it looks like, and it is most possible, that it's being spread from Wuhan because of the spreading out, how many are infected in the Wuhan area. Now, you have to remember that those figures are official figures, and they may not be correct. But it looks like the concentration of the infection is concentrated around the Wuhan area.
Well, I'm not questioning where the infection is happening. Just real quick, Ole, my question is, why do we think it's coming from a lab in Wuhan when we've got this Pirbright Institute? They have the patent here from 2019 on this coronavirus. Pirbright Institute, Ole, weren't they directly involved in this what was
simulation?
Yeah, the event 201. It was Pirbright Institute, wasn't it?
Yeah, 102. And another thing that happened on that exact date, the October the 18th, 2019, when the simulation was taking place, there were also the military world games were held that exact date, where there was thousands of militaries involved in this sport arrangement, military sport, where there were more than 110, officially 110 nations participating into this military world games, meaning that there was a massive military, forces in that area. And do you know where these world games were held for the military? In Wuhan.
Whoa.
Yeah, in Wuhan, that exact spot. So and then now when they're starting to also, they say because of the fear of spreading the virus, they started to fear that the virus is being spread through cash money. So now they want to disinfect all money, meaning that all the people have to give in all their cash money. And that is just another step we've seen on a global scale, where they're trying to push us into this digital currency. And this would be yet another part in the major puzzle of pushing forward what is called the New World Order agenda.
I do need to clarify one thing. It doesn't seem that the Pirbright Institute is listed as being directly involved in this Event 201. But where I got confused was that this Event 201 does speak about some of their involvement or funding by, I'm lost a bit in this document, but the Bill Gates, there we are. So this was funded, it was Johns Hopkins Center for Health and Security in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation hosted this Event 201. The Pirbright Institute separately lists their chief stakeholders, I believe they call it. Here we go. Our major stakeholders are conveniently listed also as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation recently gave a $9 million grant to a pharmaceutical company that's developing a vaccine for this coronavirus. So the connections aren't necessarily direct in that Event 201, but we've got all these things that are connected by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And it just seems to me that we're in a process right now where they're drumming up so much fear and anxiety about this coronavirus that as soon as somebody comes out with a vaccine, a lot of people are going to rush to it and want to get it. And then the other question becomes, how far away are we from some mandatory vaccination against this kind of thing? Cody, you see that happening in the United States, mandatory coronavirus vaccines?
Well, that's a good question, but it's difficult to answer with the limited data we have. I don't think they've even established the transmission rate, how it's transmitted and how long it can remain viable on surfaces, whether it's aerosolized and can exist without water droplets, like from a sneeze or a cough. But depending upon if it spreads, cluster spreading, a pandemic has to be declared, it has to be on 2 continents. And so if it starts spreading real fast here in the U.S. and there's clusters that break out, say like in Boston, Massachusetts, or Chicago, Illinois, or something like that, then there will certainly be some type of quarantine. It may not be as stringent as the Chinese Communist government does, but if a vaccine is developed, which is quite a ways off from what I've been hearing, they could make it mandatory depending upon the depth of the pandemic. I mean, if it gets really, really bad like the Spanish flu was, they may have mandatory vaccines, or they won't let kids in school or something unless they have the vaccine. It's real hard to tell because we don't know how fast this thing's going to spread and exactly what's going to happen. But it's certainly a possibility, but we just can't answer a question like that with this data. They're still trying to figure out exactly how it's going to spread. And secondary and tertiary people are now being infected that weren't even there at Wuhan. And so if it is aerosolized, and what type of environment will it exist in? Humid environments, desert environments, what environment would be conducive enough for this particular virus to spread? So it's possible, but we don't know.
Now, just in our last couple of minutes, Michael, any answers for that? We'll go in depth, of course, when we get into the sponsor-exclusive show.
We spoke 2 weeks ago about whether this was going to be a pandemic or not. I think it will be. At the moment, there are only 45 people who are infected in Europe, 23 in North America, and 15 in Australia. But to remember is that none has been reported from any African state. None has been reported from any South American state. And I don't believe that this is the case. I think there are infected people there as well, and that could start an infectious spreading that could be quite rapid.
So you think there's more cases than what we're hearing about?
Oh, yes. I spoke to a Chinese doctor not many days ago, and she said that what is being reported by the authorities in China is underreporting. She believes it could be more than 100,000 dead at the moment, and maybe several hundreds of thousands of dead people, and millions of infected. And I'm prone to believe that could be the case, actually.
Wow. All right. Well, we're going to have to talk some more about exactly what's causing you to believe that when we begin our sponsor-exclusive show just moments from now, a little more than 10 minutes from now. That's going to be on patreon.com/lightonconspiracies, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Before we go, I just want to remind people to visit Ole's webpage, lightonconspiracies.com. He's updating it constantly. I have to wonder when Ole finds time to sleep because he's busily updating the website and appearing on shows across the internet. You can also purchase books that Ole has written. You can also purchase Cody's book, Choosing the Light, Cody's story about the dark secrets of the Oklahoma City bombing. And Michael, we're still waiting for a book from you. That'll be coming soon, no doubt. But we'll be, or have you written any books, Michael?
No, I'm an editor-in-chief, so I write a lot of articles, scientific articles, and I'm a researcher as well in medicine. So there is one or another article there, but no book so far.
Perhaps soon. But we'll see everybody in just a few moments on Patreon and Subscribestar. I want to thank all of our generous sponsors. We could not keep this show going without your support. So please join us on Patreon and Subscribestar. We'll talk about some more details that are emerging with regard to the coronavirus. Thanks for watching, everybody.